Recording in progress.
Hello, everybody. We'll get started shortly. Thanks. Thanks for coming by. Really do appreciate it. I really do. The recordings are on the YouTube channel. I don't really have a link per se. If you just type my name in YouTube, the channel will pop up. Just a place where I just keep. It just was easier for me to put them there. Wasn't fancy with the Vimeo or whatever it's called, and it just was easier to put them there. I should be testing end of August if everything goes according to plan. The rest of this month and the beginning of next month. I've just been working at my own pace. I saw the story, saw the posts, and it just motivated me to start studying before I finish my coursework. So I'm a little burnt out right now, but I do feel pretty good about a lot of the material. I'm just working on my fluency with the application questions, slowing down, speeding up, reading all the right phrases and all that. That's where I'm in on my journey of testing. Well, studying, that is. Just to remind everybody, I'm not posting the PowerPoint for this evening. A lot of material came from my earlier study sessions with the Cooper and the behavioral lasting change. But I also pulled information from BAS Supervisor Guide. Just out of respect to their content and their material, I just didn't want to put it out there like that. But it does have a little bit of everything happening. We are being recorded for the channel, just so people have a chance to watch if they can't be here tonight. So if you don't want your name in the box or your video on, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Just want to give those disclaimers. I've just been trying to get my hands on every mock I can get a hold of. If people have been, I've got my hands on quite a few, and I've just been working on those. And when people tell me about sites, I try to go to those, but I am leery and cautious because free doesn't always mean the best. But I got the Study ABA package, and those are really good. Yeah, Celia's and Bill's are good. ABA Study Group has a bunch of mocks in there. Bill has, when you take it, it shows what area you're weak in. So that's always a definite plus with Bill. You know where you're at. And even Celia. But I like, Bill kind of gives you some confidence too. Celia's are hard. She really digs deep in those questions, which is what we need to do. But they're tough. They are tough. They are tough. Okay. A few more minutes, so catch some stragglers. Yeah, I kept hearing so much good stuff about them, so I went ahead and brought down, bought the platinum package, and I love it. I do. The content questions are amazing. The baseline mocks and the post mocks are good. It just breaks it down, items on the task list from those questions, a lot like BAS. It breaks down the questions similar to the content quizzes, but I'm just trying to get the application in. You can know all this stuff up and down, sideways, and then some. I'm not saying I'm perfect or an expert by any means, but applying it is what we need to work on with that test. AATBS, they have an assessment exam, practice exam, and a feedback. I'll have to look at that one. Yeah, it does. And it really, it does look at the areas. Yeah, is AATBS free? Yeah. Yeah, I've been trying to jump on free. Paying only if I absolutely have to. All right. Well, we could, that's not bad at all. That's really not bad at all. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and jump in. I know you guys, I really do appreciate y'all taking your time to spend with me on a Monday evening or Monday morning or wherever life has taken you. Like I've said before in previous Zooms, I am no expert by any stretch of the imagination. I'm just a guy who saw some Facebook posts and saw people were multiple and first time test takers. And it made me think I better jump on this and start studying before I finish my coursework. So a year and a half later, here I am still, working it out, doing these sessions. I do always tell everyone at the beginning or the end, not all the time, I'm that consistent, but teach a session to somebody. Get out there, get out of your comfort zone. If you could explain it, if you could talk about it, even if you can't. There have been several times, and still, happens a lot, where I don't know all the ins and the outs, and I struggle. And we have those group decisions, and someone kind of, works it out with you. talk it out with somebody, work it out with somebody, and it really makes a big difference. At least it has for me. That's been my big reason for doing the sessions. The prep helps me study, and the sessions help me talk it out. There are lots of different types of materials out there, lots of different types of study sessions out there. I try to sneak in some questions sometimes, but for the most part, I'm lecture. It's just the way it kind of ends up being all the time. If I go too fast or too slow, please let me know. If you want to screenshot any of the slides, you are definitely more than welcome. And like I said before, out of respect to the BAS Supervisor Guide and the BAS people, I'm not posting this to Facebook, but I am willing to share my Cooper and my behavior lasting change information out there, which is pretty much me regurgitating the chapter since I'm not the best reader. I'm getting better. I'm getting a lot better. Tonight we're going to tackle experimental design. Experimental design, it used to really, I guess it really scared me and bothered me my first round when I saw it in college. And you see all these graphs, you see all these different designs, you see all these things, and it gets pretty daunting pretty quick, at least on the visual side of it. Thank you, everybody. It gets pretty daunting very quick. So I can understand that, which is why I spent a lot of time kind of wrapping around to it. Like most of us in areas that we struggle the most in or we're worried about the most, we spend a lot of our studying there. But I'm just going to follow experimental design as the task list follows, which more specifically the BAS Supervisor Guide follows. Well, B01 talks about the dimensions of applied behavior analysis. And I think we've been in several study groups in several areas. Several people, you know, have knocked out those acronyms of those dimensions of behavior. In the chat box, since I don't want to bore you, can someone or anybody or all of you guys, can you knock out the 7 dimensions of behavior analysis from Bear, Wolf, and Risley? Need words. Acronyms are great. Those are great. Help us remember, but I need what do those letters mean in those acronyms? Good. There we go. There we go. Love it. Love it. Yeah, I love my acronyms too. I love them. They help. They're great. But at the end of the day, can we knock them out also? And what they also mean. Love it. Love it. So we did back cage. We have behavioral. We have our analytical. We have our applied. We have our conceptually systematic. Someone put technical in there. Effective, general. These are great. They're all there. And that's what B01 is looking for. Those dimensions. Yeah, systematic, evidence-based practices. No pixie dust and no magic. We'd be selling our services for big money if we had magic or pixie dust. This is from one of my slides from my Cooper presentation. This is from the 3rd edition. Bear, Wolf, and Risley, we've heard their names several times. They define these 7 dimensions for research or behavioral change. Applied is that social thing, those things that have social significance to our participants. Rogue states, you know, would learn the clarinet be important for our clients? Probably not. So when we look at applied, we're looking for those social significant behaviors. Um, daily living skills, toileting, hand washing, adaptive skills. Are also important too. So we need to continue that commitment of affecting improvement in lives. That's another reason why I love the Essentials for Living program. I can't wait till I get my first client to jump on it. There's nothing wrong with ABLS. There's nothing wrong with BB-MAP. There's nothing wrong with PEAK. But I like how Dr. Patrick McGreevy looks at those daily living skills. And for some clients, we just want to enhance their living, their life skills. And those are definitely social significant. I saw a lot of y'all put the behavioral part in there. The behavioral objective are observational, objective, measurable, concise, precise. It's all right there in behavioral. What is the behavior we're looking at? What needs improvement? Paint me a picture of that behavior. Bear Wolf and Grizzly made 3 important points about the behavioral dimension. The behavior must be chosen in need of improvement. We're not just pulling any rabbit out of the hat. What behavior needs improvement? And to kind of step it up a little bit, what my supervisor showed me was when I'm in a classroom and I'm with a student and I'm taking, I could track data or keep track of every behavior that student is doing. But I could also keep track of behaviors that are interrupting the learning process and are not typical of his age-appropriate peers. I'm narrowing it down because I need to look for a behavior that's in need of improvement and also socially valid as well. It must be measurable, the precise and reliable measurement of behavior. Can't measure it, that's kind of throws it out the window. A big part of what we do is measuring the change in behavior. If there's a change in behavior, we can show through our data that there's an increase or a decrease in that desired behavior or undesired behavior for that matter. When changes in behavior are observed during an investigation, it is necessary to ask whose behavior has changed. And those are just some points that Bear Wolf and Risley made regarding this dimension. Analytic, that's your functional relation, that's your experimental. Some of y'all put in the chat box. We're demonstrating experimental control, which is a big part of tonight. Experimental design has an experimental control. Each phase of whatever given design has their merits, has their points, but they have to show a functional relation. They don't show that, and we can't really demonstrate that an intervention or whatever we did was effective. The technological part, this is written descriptions of all the procedures. Everything that we do is written in specific detail. It's not just for insurance companies, it's for the person who follows up on us, what we do and how we do it. It's very important. We could also publish it, and other people could replicate our studies and our findings themselves. Conceptually systematic, this kind of came up in that group I was with the other night. We were talking about, it popped up in our heads. I couldn't think of the word, but this is where that evidence-based principles comes in. What we do is BCBAs or aspiring BCBAs, they have to be evidence-based and research-based. We just don't pull things out of our hat and say, oh, that's great. We don't look for the flavor of the month. We don't look for that cool trend and go, that's what we're going to use today. We want evidence and research to back up what we're doing. So these behavior change interventions are derived from principles of behavior. I don't know about you, but when I sit in a lecture or a presentation at work and they don't have the background that we have, it drives me nuts. It drives me crazy. They have a huge heart. They have some great information. Things are awesome. Everything's wonderful, but is it conceptually systematic? And that is I don't know about you guys, but that really, I start to notice that more. Because we all can look for a grocery list of strategies. That was my first year in this gig. Here's what we're going to do. Here's our combinations. Here are our modifications. Let's pick one and we'll cross our fingers. Well, we need to have that effective behavior change. And it all comes from research and evidence-based. And of course, Beowulf and Risley, they had their argument and rationale for use of conceptual systems. Relating specific procedures to basic principles might enable the research consumer to derive the other similar procedures from the same practices. So a lot of what we are doing in our field is great stuff in our field. It's coming from our basic principles. If you look at the skills-based treatment and the practical functional assessment, the practical functional assessment is derived from the synthesized functional analysis and shaping and differential reinforcement and reinforcement principles. Those principles are deriving those concepts. It's beautiful when you start to see what conceptually systematic is. Those basic building blocks that we keep studying about, and they're not just for a test, they pop up in all these things that we're looking at. Conceptual systems are needed if a technology is to become an integrated discipline instead of a collection of tricks. I think we've talked about that earlier. We need to have that technology that it works, it has research behind it, and not just that flavor of the month. Is it effective? Obviously, when you see a mock question, at least for me, that kind of helped me out on this one is, if they have which dimension of ABA, I'm looking for effectiveness. Is it showing effectiveness? Is it improving the behavior of the learner? Is it showing that huge improvement? Is it showing effectiveness? Extent to which changes in the target behavior or behaviors result in noticeable changes. Then, of course, generalization, as some of y'all put in the box. Generalization is huge. I never even realized how much until I started studying. You know, as an educator, our goal is to generalize those core subjects into our learners to spread across other areas. Well, same thing for us. The behaviors and the interventions that we are helping with our students and our learners, they need to last over time. They need to last when we're not in the room. They need to continue when staff isn't around. That's what makes them so wonderful. They need to appear in other environments. You know, hand washing is probably a great example. You know, I can wash my hands in any setting, and I can wash my hands when anybody else is around. But that's a big goal for our learners. Last over time. We're not just looking for mastery. We hit 80% over 3 days, awesome. No, we're looking for, does it produce over time? And does it happen in other environments? Does it spread to other behaviors that are not directly treated by the intervention? When we work on daily living skills, does it spread to other living skills that have some significance? We're generalizing those behaviors. Task B02, review and interpret articles from the behavior analytic literature. There really isn't a whole lot happening here. I think I just put in what the supervisor guide put in there. I think a lot of us are doing this. We really hit this hard in my coursework, doing literature reviews, article reviews, and really looking at the introduction. You definitely want to read the abstract to give you a summary of the article itself. What were the methods? How they get IOA? How they, what was their conclusion at the end? Was there any limitations? It's really important to look at those articles to give us information. But like I said before, the quickest way to learn about an abstract is, an article is to read the abstract before you want to learn more. Also, graphic displays and visual data is very helpful as well. All right. Not a whole lot happening in that one. It's just basically read research articles and know what you're looking for. B03, systematically arrange independent variables to demonstrate their effects on dependent variables. This is your experiment. We're going to add the IV, which is the intervention, and see what it has, what effects it has on the dependent variable, what we're looking to change. It's funny because when I started doing this, and our 14-year-old was going through science class, and it's just like, oh, I know this. It makes sense now. The fundamental rule of experimental design is change only one variable at a time. Change one thing and evaluate the effect of measure of the behavior. That's from the BAS Supervisor Guide. Their example is, you notice that the rate of individual praise to your supervisee is an average of twice per hour-long meeting. You would like to increase completion of homework assignments and competent demonstration of skills. These are your dependent variables or measures. You decide to increase your rate of praise to a fixed 10 times per hour. This is your IV. After a month of tracking, your data shows an increase in homework completion and incompetent demonstration of skills. This would suggest that your IV is increased and had a positive effect on homework and task demonstration. Let's go back to the top part, one variable at a time. Even if you're doing an alternating treatment design, you're going back and forth and you're only changing one thing, adding one thing at a time. When you do a component analysis, you're looking at that one thing at a time to see which one worked. So you don't want to throw in too much and then go, oh, it's working, because you're going to have to go back at the end and see and find out through component analysis which one was right and that was working. When you do an ABA design, the reversal withdrawal, you add that variable, you add that IV, you take it away to see if it had an effect. But we're only looking at one variable to see what that effect is on the behavior. Which leads right into withdrawal reversal design. Once again, I kind of pulled a lot of what I had before. Reversal is your ABA design. We start out with our initial baseline, we go to an intervention phase, and then we were also returned to baseline. There are definitely some ethical issues with the reversal design or withdrawal, because once we add that intervention or we add that skill, it's kind of hard to unlearn it. It's kind of hard to unteach it. And for some behaviors that are severe problem behaviors, we don't want to pull the plug on an intervention that's working. So we could also do a BAB design where we put that intervention in first, still have a difficult time with the pulling and the withdrawing it. But it's also why an alternating treatment will be good too. You're putting something in and seeing which one works the best. But anyways, reversal design, it has our 3 consecutive phases: baseline, intervention, and back to baseline. Now, baseline, we have to have that steady state of responding. We don't want variability. We don't want points all over the place. If we have points all over the place, we got to keep taking more baseline. We need a stable state of data. If we're looking to decrease the behavior and the baseline's decreasing on the graph, then we probably need to take some more baseline data, because we don't want that carryover. We don't want we want that stable baseline data. We don't want to have that lie of, well, it's already decreasing, so I'll jump over to my intervention and look, it's decreasing some more. So we want that stable rate of responding. In the intervention phase, if I'm looking to decrease the behavior, then I need to see a clear decrease in the intervention phase. And then when I go back to baseline, when I withdraw, and I have a high rate, and then shows a significant decrease, and then another high rate, then I'm showing a relation. You want to have an AB, AB. If you go AB, AB, that's pretty strong. The more baselines, the more phases you have, the stronger your relation is also. Cannot believe I was able to describe that. This time last year, I think I would have struggled. The reversal design, like I said before, is ABA. It could be ABAB. I'm just knocking a bunch of letters out to you pretty much here. But we're starting the baseline, we're adding intervention, and then we're heading back. In the case of BAB, we're starting with our intervention, then we're going to baseline, then we're heading back. Any experimental design in which the researcher attempts to verify the effect by reversing responding to a level obtained in a previous condition. So if I do an ABAB, I'm going to look at my intervention phases, and that level of responding in both of them is higher or significantly higher or lower compared to my baseline, then we're doing something right. This is from Rogue. It's a great visual. It breaks it down. This graphic right here definitely shows a good, strong functional relation. Your baseline has a high frequency of inappropriate responses. Then we add NCR, and then we have a decrease. There is a little bit of variability in the baseline, but not enough for us to get a little worried. We do have a good, strong trend, good, strong level. So nothing to get really wild and crazy about. Withdrawal reversal requires a baseline. Like we said earlier, treatment is withdrawn, and there are definitely ethical concerns with that as well. Experimental control is through baseline logic, prediction, verification, and then replication. Our prediction of what's going to happen, we had that verification in the intervention, and then we could replicate that in the next intervention phase. Alternating treatment design or multi-element. There's a lot of different AKAs, a lot of them. And I've seen some mock questions that really kind of break them down a little bit more. But at the end of the day, when I think of multi-element, when I think of concurrent, when I think of all these things happening, I look at the visual, and it's going back and forth. It's literally alternating on the graph. And then the best one that I could pick is the one that has the higher rate of responding. Now, in the Cooper, it does break it down, and I have that presentation where it really digs deep into the different types of alternating treatment designs and all the different conditions and all this and all this and all that. My personal favorite was we don't have to have baseline. We can jump right into our intervention, and then which one after our visual inspection has the best rate of responding. Well, we can go to another condition, just use that intervention that we were using, that IV, all by itself, and see how it goes. Because we definitely want to see which condition works the best when it's by itself. At least that's my opinion. But this has two or more conditions, and they're in rapid alternating succession. We're basically comparing two or more treatments. And I know I say it's a lot, but am I going too fast, too slow? How are we going? How are we doing? Okay, just want to make sure. You don't have to have a baseline in this particular. Yes.
Oh, you're going a little fast for my ears. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Oh, now somebody says great pace. Sorry.
I always ask because I can sometimes speed up and I slow down, and I just want to double check. But alternating treatment design, like I said earlier, baseline is optional. This graph has a baseline, but you don't have to have one. It's just strictly optional. When you look at the intervention, and session 5 we have DRA, session 6 we jump to NCR. That, for me, that visual of I can see it jumping from one to the next. I'm seeing that alternating treatment. I'm seeing that going on. And this graph, what it did also was it took the DRA, since that intervention had the best, the best rate of responding, then they did that by itself in the next phase to see if it still had that, I guess, that rate of responding going on also. So for me, when I look at alternating treatment, this is just me, I look for that alternating, because we're not gonna do DRA and NCR in the same session. It's gonna be alternating one after the next. This design also avoids irreversibility and sequence effects and unstable data. There's no carryover. What we did in our, since there is no baseline doesn't carry over into our intervention, and the intervention doesn't carry back over into baseline. That's a problem that we could also have in the reversal withdrawal, the irreversibility, and the sequence effects also. We don't have that here. We can have multiple treatment interference because we have, well, multiple treatments going on. There are multiple interventions and multiple treatments. That's part of our design. So if the treatments we're doing are similar, then we're going to have multiple treatment interference. If they're significantly different, then we could, and our learner's able to discriminate, then we won't have that problem as much. Experimental control is having differentiation, even taught tonight, between the data paths, clearly indicating the best treatment. It's kind of like looking at that functional analysis data. Which data path is clearly above the rest? Which data path clearly has the best treatment? And if we're not sure, and one's kind of above the rest, so let's just kick out one more phase and let's see if it really is. The visual feature is 2 plus, and there's a keyword plus. There are some graphs I've seen in research papers that have lots of different intervention phases in the same independent path. So Rogue has some great visuals when it comes to experimental design. I'm not trying to sell their product, I'm just trying to state a fact. Some great stuff happening there. I remember when it was just 4 of us, when I first started doing experimental design, those were some tough conversations we had. But experimental design, it does have a lot of stuff. It really, really does. Changing criterion design are, these are designs that we're going to use when we are, I can't think of the words here. The skill is already in the learner's repertoire. They can already do it. So we're just changing well, the criterion. We're adding or taking away from it.
Are we also changing it within the class as well? So like from being able to sit for 1 minute to 3 minutes to 4 minutes to 5 minutes?
Yeah, you're changing the dimensions of it.
Yeah, so it's just increasing it slowly over time to increase their ability to do something.
Right.
Stay engaged. Yeah. I always think, I look back now and changing criterion, I think is what we did
when I was doing home health for that short time, 80%, 3-4 days in a row. Oh, we nailed it. We're going to move on to the next one. We did this skill, and then we got 3 days in a row, 4 days in a row, maybe took a little bit longer than that. But once we reached that criterion, we mastered it up, and our bubble sheet looked great. But then breaking this down, it's like, oh, hold on here a second. It's a little bit different than that. But I love how baseline is also optional. In some research articles that I saw, baseline can be good because it gives you a good starting out point, because this is no different than a lot of the other things that we do in our field. You don't want to start out with a very high criterion. You want an achievable criterion coming out of baseline or starting out period. So you don't want to go too high, it's too challenging, or it's too easy. So the baseline kind of gives you that middle ground. Our graph here shows baseline probably averaged around maybe 1, look more like 0, but they put 5, looks like 5 or 6 for their criterion starting out. So that hopefully was, and they nailed it 3 times in a row, but those miles ran per week, and they're increasing those miles ran, just like you just said, the dimension. Our thing here, our response class here, our behavior is running, and we're trying to increase that running. We're trying to get those miles up per week. Of course, you could also, if you want to track how many miles you ran for a year or for a month or a week, you could use a cumulative record to track the overall as you're hitting those miles. But for this case, we're trying to increase, which is why we're changing our criterion. Once we hit 6, then we raised it. But a lot of the stuff I saw in Cooper, it really was, I can't think of the words and I can't talk here. Like I said, achievable at the same time. I don't want to go too high of a goal, but I don't want to go too easy. But it's also in their repertoire. And of course, we're changing the IV as a learner progresses. Enhancing experimental control in this design is the length of the phases and the magnitude of the criterion changes. The number of criterion changes, and also bidirectional change. I saw a question where it had bidirectional change, and it completely threw myself off because I'm thinking of, oh, okay. But a bidirectional change is once we reach in this case, once we reached, say, 18 miles per week, we start doing a bidirectional change and start stepping it down. If there's a complete change, a mirror change, that also shows experimental control. Visual feature, data points clustering just above and around the criterion lines. The visual feature really helps give it away if you're given a mock question of which one's criterion design, but I don't think they're going to be that simple on the test. Yes, I see a hand raised.
Hi, why would you do a bidirectional change? Only to show that the intervention is working, or?
I don't, from what I saw on that mock question, I guess it would be, like you said, to show that it's working. I wouldn't quote me as an expert on bidirectional change because I'm probably not ever going to do it. But it really, I guess it shows that it's working because we're backing it up. If we can go,
it shows control, functional control of the behavior and how we can manipulate it. If there's no baseline too, that's very important.
Right. I like that.
Thank you.
Maybe to show the functional relationship between the IV and the DV.
Yeah, that would be. I think it's. I want to say taking it down a notch to show that it would work before, but it does kind of, like, I agree with Cassie. It has that that reversal part to it where we stepped it down and we didn't do as much, and it shows that functional relation, that change. But I saw a question that mentioned it, but it was basically, it just took it back and asked like how many directional changes or something like that. But it looked like from the graph that I saw that was using it, it was almost like a mirror image. It stair-stepped up and then it stair-stepped back down, but it was almost like mirror images. And it just showed that relation that the learner could do the peaks, and then it could also do it as we worked our way back down. But yeah, this can get pretty tricky. It's kind of the same thing there. Multiple baseline, it breaks it down a little bit in the task list with multiple probe. And I know Cooper and I know multiple baseline designs, it really branches out to delayed, and then you have your multiple probe. But I'm just going what BAS Supervisor Guide had, and I pulled in some Cooper stuff. Multiple baseline, and glass not on this slide, and I'll pull the chat box up. This could be another question we could look at. Multiple baseline design is across 3 things. It's across this, this, and this. Doing a little interverbal here. Multiple baseline designs are across blank,
Behaviors.
and blank. I saw behavior. What else?
Settings.
Yeah.
Subjects.
Perfect. Behavior, settings, and subjects. This has got me reading the baseline questions a little bit better, because if it has 3 learners' names, if it has 3 learner behaviors, if it has 3 learner settings, or in the question it has across the cafeteria, the classroom, and home, that's definitely given me across settings. So one thing I've been doing with multiple baseline questions is looking at them a little bit deeper. What are they asking? Is it multiple behaviors? Is it multiple settings? Is it multiple, you already just told me. Is it across those things? In a multiple baseline design, simultaneous baseline measurement is begun on 2 or more behaviors. We'll talk about multiple probe here in a little bit, why it's a great go-to, because multiple baseline design is very time consuming. There is a big cost involved because you're doing a lot of baseline measurement, and then you're doing all this multiple behaviors, multiple settings, multiple everything. There's a lot of work involved. So that's why multiple probe, and I'll share my little test trick that I learned from somebody, is usually sometimes a good go-to when you don't have time. That's why delayed multiple baseline is great. When you don't have time and you can just kick in a learner and he can start from right there. Because there is a lot of time involved with the multiple baseline design. But once we reach that steady baseline responding, then we apply the IV. And then once the IV has a stable state of responding for that first learner, then we add it to the next person. And then once they have their stable state, then we add it again. So we still need that stable state of responding before we add the IV to the next learner and so forth. After maximum change has been noted in the first behavior, the IV is applied in sequential fashion to other behaviors in the design. Of course, multiple baseline design is most notable with the stair steps, the dashed lines with the steps that shows you the multiple settings, subjects, and behaviors, the different people involved. It's most widely used experimental design for evaluating treatment effects in ABA. This is the most widely used. Experimental control is demonstrated in multiple baseline by each behavior changing when and only when the IV is applied. So I have that stable state of baseline, I add the IV, and there's a behavior change. And then once I get that stable behavior change in the data path, then I'll add to my next person. Multiple baseline across behaviors consist of 2 or more different behaviors. We could also talk about multiple baseline across settings, 2 or more different settings. Multiple baseline across subjects, 2 or more different subjects. You know, I was making my Quizlet or my SafeMed or my note cards. Every time I came across that, it was literally the same words, just that changed, behaviors, subjects, and settings. It all seemed the same. So it's 2 or more different behaviors, 2 or more different settings, 2 or more different subjects. So when you see that mock question and it talks about 2 or more different behaviors we're tracking, or 2 or more different settings, or it gives you multiple settings and it gives you multiple behaviors, that's a clue when it gives you choices for which experimental design would be the best to use. At least that's been a trick that I've been using. If I have 2 or more different settings, then I'm going to look at multiple baseline across settings or multiple baseline. But I'll look at my answer choices based on what I'm given, because there are some questions out there that are looking for which design fits best for that question. And it's really kind of helped me change how I look at experimental design. It's not just, you know, learn the ins and the outs or going deep. It's which one works the best, or which one works in that specific setting, or whatever. I'm trying to slow down a little bit. I know I'm a fast talker. I'm trying my best. The rest of these slides are kind of repeating of what I just said. The last slide was about multiple behaviors. This one's about multiple settings. I like how Cooper breaks it down. 2 or more different settings, situations, or time periods. I like that because we get so set in our mind of it's the cafeteria, it's the classroom, and it's home. Well, it could be a social situation. If we're trying to improve social skills, it could be talking to a peer one-on-one, peer in a group setting, or a classroom setting. Different situations. It could be different time periods, different intervals. Period period 1 or 2. It's not so cut and dry of just settings. And I really like that a lot because our world is, our environments are so, you know, different. Multiple baseline across subjects. I think I've already talked about this a little bit. 2 or more different participants or groups. 1 target behavior for 2 or more subjects in the same setting. And same thing, stable rate of responding in the baseline established. We had the IV, well, everybody else is still going baseline. Then once we have that stable state of responding, IV's working, we add to the next person, and so forth. Alternative to reversal design for 2, according to Cooper, situations, and when the target behavior is likely to be irreversible, or when it is undesirable, impractical, or unethical to withdraw. That's kind of a neat little thing there. Because reversal, it's kind of hard to reverse. and it's and it gets impractical and unethical to withdraw all the time. So in this case, we're going to keep adding as it goes on. Here's the Rogue about multiple baseline, some great stuff. The multiple probe, what really helps me out on mock questions is if the practitioner or the teacher or the whoever doesn't have a lot of time. If time is a problem. A friend of mine I was studying with helped me out with that, and it just, light bulb. Because if you don't have time, multiple probe is great because you're probing to see what the learner knows, what the learner already has in their repertoire. And then you're basing the intervention off of that probe, those intermittent probes, which makes multiple probe design great for shaping because we're probing what they know. And if we're going to teach a novel skill in our intervention, then we know what the learner can and can't do. But what's best about this is we're seeing what the learner when learning is unlikely to occur without treatment. Because time, we just don't have a lot of time. So those intermittent can't talk probes are great to see where the learner is without an intervention. And of course, it got a little big on me here on the bottom part. Design features include no withdrawal, no reversal. A visual side, when you look at, like I said, the checkered, the dashed lines, the stair steps. The baselines get larger. That tells you a lot right there. But if you notice on this graph, it is a multiple baseline across behaviors. We have behavior 1, 2, and 3. This is a me thing. It's really important to make sure you look at the graph because it's going to ask you in some questions, is it across settings, subjects, and behaviors? And you need to look at what's given. Sometimes they throw in some other stuff in there. Multiple baseline alternating treatment design, they combine. So you really got to look at that graph and really spend some time visually inspecting it. That's where I've had some issues at, and that's where I kind of want to share with you guys. According to Rogue, multiple baseline is highly flexible and easy to use. Stability in baseline is necessary, just like the withdrawal reversal. Stability is it's required. Time and cost is high. This requires a great deal of resources and delays a treatment. This is what I was saying earlier. Time and cost, we put a lot into this guy. We're putting a lot into it. And if we don't have that time, we don't have those great deal of resources to put in there, then we might want to look at a multiple probe. We might want to look at delayed multiple baseline when resources are also limited, or a new subject or a new setting or something new happens and pops in there. We don't want to start from scratch. We just kind of want to add that as we go. So multiple probe has that time, we're probing, and delayed multiple baseline also helps us with our limited resources. Because like I said before, time and cost is huge with multiple baseline. And there are some mock questions out there that throw in, which one's best? Multiple treatment, multiple baseline, multiple probe, and delayed multiple baseline. They get a little tricky like that. So you have to be thinking about what works best in that situation. Vicarious reinforcement, spillover effects across subjects. There's a little bit of spillover. The DV must be functionally similar to and independent from one another. And I'm just kind of saying what they're saying at this point. I just want to kind of throw in another picture of a graph for multiple baseline. This one would be multiple baseline across what? And someone put that in the chat box. Multiple baseline across what? Settings, subjects, or behaviors. Yes, subjects. And my participant 1, participant 2, participant 3. And I'm only saying this, like I said before, because I caught myself on a mock question. I was like, oh man, it's the baseline across whatever. And then I got the question wrong. I thought I got it right. And their names were next to each graph. And I was like, oh, multiple baseline across subjects. So just that little extra piece, it makes a big difference. I'll post it to the YouTube channel. I'll try to get tomorrow. I do get a little, I'll just have the recording will finish up. So it'll be on the YouTube channel. We're going. This is going a little bit. Got used to going a little slow or going the short nights. All right, B08, multiple probe designs. Multiple probe design, like I said, is when you don't have the time. Time is an issue. And you want to probe intermittently to see what the learners can do. So this is used when you want to analyze the relationship between the IV and the acquisition of successive approximation or task sequence, or when you'd like a multiple baseline, but with less data points necessary. So an initial probe is taken to see the current level of performance. We're going to probe the learners to see where they're at. Baseline measures are taken for each step in the sequence before training. Nothing's really different there. Then after criterion level is reached in the first condition or sequence step, then a probe is done to assess the level of behavior change in any other steps. So the big difference here is we probe to see where the learners are at. We do baseline for everybody before we add the training. And then once our criterion level is reached, then we want to probe again to assess where we're at. Because time, we don't have the time to go on and on and on. Share the name of your YouTube channel. It's just my name. Just my name, nothing fancy. Probe intermittently to measure target behavior during baseline. Not appropriate for behavior with significant variability. Of course, variability is what we don't want in any baseline, regardless of whatever graph we're doing. Use these when extended baseline measurement is unnecessary, impractical, too costly, potentially reactive, or unavailable. When extended baseline, it's just, it's not best for what we're trying to do. Analyzes relation between IV and acquisition of skill sequences, which is why I think shaping would be a great multiple probe design, because I want to assess where they're at, see if how much they know about that new skill, and then we can start hitting that criterion. Because if not, then we would have done a criterion design, because if it's already in their repertoire, we can just change the dimensions as we go. But if they don't, then obviously we're trying something different. Instead of simultaneous baselines, probes provide basis for determining if behavior change has occurred prior to the intervention. So we're not using baseline, we're using probes. We want the probes to determine if there was a change or not, if they learned it. Combination of design elements. This happens a lot, B09, on several research papers I've looked at and articles where they combined, and like Ryan Sain said from Sitecore, experimental design can be a lot of, it's really just a design. It could be A, B, E, and just you can do different letters and add as you go. There's no cut and dry. I've seen alternating treatment put in with multiple baseline. It's just basically combining the design elements that fit with your learner and fit with what you're trying to do, what you're trying to accomplish. That's really what it's trying to point out at the end of the day. How does it fit with what you're trying to do? This is straight from the BAS Supervisor Guide. Like I said before, instead of saying ABA, we just investigate one intervention, we could investigate more. And then it turns into an ABA, CA, DA, EA design. That's a tongue twister. But instead of investigating one, we're combining other interventions, other elements, so we could see its effect on those things as well. If you want to know if a treatment worked and you're concerned that it won't be significant enough, you could try an ABA design with a reversal phase at the end. Using probes over long periods of time is sometimes used to determine maintenance of behavior that is no longer in treatment. There are many ways to combine design elements. Simply know that several elements may be combined within a study depending on what hypothesis you are trying to answer. Like I said before, what are you trying to convey? What are you trying to get out of this research design? So your design elements will be based on what fits to your deal. It may not be as cut and dry. You may do the ABA design. It's what you're trying, you're combining what works best for your design, for your study. And the last part is component analysis, and then B11 is parametric analysis. When we look at a component analysis, and I wish I had more time to find some graphs that really kind of really speak it to us here, but a component analysis is where we're trying to figure out which component worked. You know, I throw in all these different interventions, I throw in all these different components, and things are rocking and rolling, and the learner's doing better, and we have a great change, but which one was responsible? So now I need to pull everything, pull them out, and one at a time, see which one was effective. So we need to find out which components are responsible for change. That's a component analysis, straight from BAS Supervisor Guide on this slide. Which component was effective and which component worked. And then parametric is basically, we're turning the dial up. If we're gonna use medicine, is it 1 milligram? Is it 2 milligrams? Is it 3 milligrams? Is it 4 milligrams? Is it 5 milligrams? How many milligrams was effective for that change? Or back it up, 2, 3, 2, 1, and so forth. If we're going to use money for an intervention or a token system, how many tokens was effective? Was it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? How much was effective? So that's basically a parametric analysis. Now, a non-parametric analysis is whether it's on or off, whether the intervention is on or it's off. That's what we're analyzing. So that would be your ABA. It's off in the baseline, it's on intervention, and it's off again. The intervention either on or off. But parametric, we're turning the dial up or we're turning it down to see how much or how little is necessary for the intervention. And that is all that I have. Any questions, concerns, worries, doubts, fears? It's a lot of information in an hour. A lot of stuff. A lot of stuff. A lot of stuff. A lot of stuff. I really do appreciate you guys taking the time to spend with me on a Monday night. I'm trying to get back on the horse a little bit and finish up strong on my hours. But if you have any questions or concerns or worries on material, or want me to dissect the question with you, private DM me on Facebook, and I would have no problem. Section E is definitely something I'm thinking about. E goes great with, I think, D. No, is it CD? CD. I'll look at it. I'll look at it. Because I've had a few issues with E also. But I'll post whatever I decide I'm gonna do for next week. Yeah, J has a lot of stuff. I think I've already done J and I maybe. I may redo one of those because recording didn't take. But I'll definitely look at where I'm at and what I'm gonna do, and I'll post it next week for you guys. They'll probably be on they'll be on YouTube for sure tomorrow. I'll finish get the recording downloaded tonight, and I'll try to get on there tomorrow. But once again, thank y'all so much for spending some time with me, and I'll see y'all later. Thanks, everybody.